the country to prepare them as they go on college campuses and into life. Remember, yesterday when he spoke at the Youth Leadership Academy, his comment was, don't you dare step your even big toe on a college campus until you go through Summit Ministries. And he did that not because he's trying to champion Summit Ministries, because he knows what these kids are up against when they go on these college campuses. We are thrilled of the legacy that Dr. Noble has left through Summit Ministries and all of his work of us understanding the times and what we ought to do. Please give a warm and Iowa welcome to Dr. David Noble.
Peace, freedom, justice. I like that. Where's Dell? I didn't know. Mentor? Dell, come on. You're older than I am. No, Dell has been a part of the summit for as many years as I can remember, so that's all good news too. But for time's sake, I'm reducing 30 years of study to 30 minutes. I'm going to speak on worldviews and collision. I'm going to make this a lay sermon, and you'll get the gist of the lay sermon a little later on why this is so. Because Thomas Huxley had lay sermons, and before he would speak, he always would quote from Charles Darwin's book and go from there. So I'm going to give you a little lay sermon this afternoon. Some of you won't be in church tomorrow, so this is maybe your church time too. We'll see. I read from Isaiah chapter 1 through verse 17, with just a few changes, and you'll spot some of these right off the bat. Isaiah chapter 1 says, the vision concerning America that Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw during the reign of Barack, transforming America, Obama. Bill, guilty as hell, free as a bird, heirs. Kevin, queering elementary education, Jennings. And Kathy, red diaper baby, Boudin. The ox knows its owner. The donkey its master feeding trough. But America does not know. My people do not understand. O sinful nation, people weighed down with iniquity, brood of evildoers, depraved children. This is all from the book of Isaiah, by the way. They have abandoned the Lord. The whole head is hurt. The whole heart is sick. From the sole of the foot even to the head, no spot is uninjured. Welts and festering sores are not cleansed, bandaged, or soothed with oil. If the Lord had not left us a few survivors, we would be like Sodom. We would resemble Gomorrah. Hear the word of the Lord, you rulers of Sodom. Listen to the instruction of our God, you people of Gomorrah. Remove your evil deeds from my sight. Learn to do what is good. Seek justice. Correct the oppressor. Isaiah 1 through 17. And I could have read the rest of the chapter because it has to do with turning your good money into bad. That's another lecture. In 1950, Immanuel Velikovsky wrote Worlds in Collision. And he caused a minor eruption which still continues today. In fact, 5 years later, he followed up with Earth and Upheaval, which caused his opposition further heartburn, especially the Darwinianists and their uniformitarian partners. Worldviews in Collision contains the same potential for the Christian community to understand the lay of the land for the 21st century and not be fooled or seduced by the humanistic, Marxist, Islamic worldviews arrayed against them. Let's begin to dispel some darkness here. Let's understand the lay of our land, and also, not just here, but around the globe. One day, while browsing through a library in Colorado Springs, Julian Huxley came across some essays by Lord Morley, in which he found these words: "The next great task of science will be to create a religion for humanity." I underline, a religion for humanity. Huxley was challenged by this vision. He said it fired him up in sharing his convictions that science would of necessity be playing an essential part in framing any religion of the future worthy of the name. Huxley took up Morley's challenge to develop a scientific religion. He called it evolutionary humanism. Huxley was president of the British Humanist Association and developed his scientific religion at UNESCO, which he headed for 10 years. While at UNESCO, he gave his biological and political game away for all of us to ponder. I want you to hear the quote, and things haven't changed one bit. He said that the unifying, this is Julian Huxley, the unifying of traditions into a single common pool of experience, awareness, and purpose is necessary for the further major progress in human evolution. Accordingly, although political unification in some sort of world government will be required for the definite attainment of this stage of human evolution, unification in the things of the mind is not only necessary, but it can pave the way for other types of unification. What Julian Huxley was propagating regarding a religion based on evolutionary science did not come from Lord Morley alone. His grandfather was Thomas Huxley. Thomas Huxley was also in the war to overthrow the cultural dominance of Christianity with the religion of secular naturalism. Thomas Huxley and his atheistic friends had as their goal the establishment of the church scientific. And Huxley actually referred to his scientific lectures, based primarily on Darwinian evolution, as lay sermons. That's where I took my term from, lay sermons. The scientific religion today is called humanism, secular humanism, ethical humanism, evolutionary humanism, secularism, or in Dennis Prager's word, leftism. It was bred in England and America via Thomas Huxley, Julian Huxley, and John Dewey. It was ushered onto us through the United Nations' Robert Mueller and his UNESCO-published World Core Curriculum. And right down to 2013 with Bill Gates and his Big History Project and Common Core Curriculum. Richard Dawkins, the world's leading atheist, and his Foundation for Reason and Science is being brought into America's high schools through Big History. Gates is also funding to the tune of $150 million, and that's the low figure, it could be twice that. The Common Core Curriculum, which is sweeping across the United States of America today. His former Microsoft partner, Charles Simonyi, named Richard Dawkins as the Charles Simonyi Professor of Public Understanding of Science at Oxford University. Its latest professor is Marcus du Sautoy, another atheist. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Gates, Dawkins, Simonyi, and atheism go together like Mary and Mary's little lamb. And keep in mind that it was the U.S. Supreme Court that identified secular humanism a religion in its 1961 Torcaso versus Watkins decision. And the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals ruling in 2005 that atheism is a religion, which happens to be the theology of secular humanism. In other words, everything that Julian Huxley wished to see happen is happening right before our very eyes, even through 2013. Back in February 2003, Dennis Prager observed the world. That's good pastime, by the way, I recommend it. Observe the world. He observed the world and concluded that three worldviews were vying for the hearts and minds of its people. The world's future, said Prager, is being decided at this time. Such moments are extremely rare in history, and when they have occurred, they have been between two, not three competing ideologies. But there are now three competing to share the future of mankind. They are militant Islam, Western European secularism and socialism, and American Judeo-Christianity and capitalism. And by the way, as a footnote free of charge, I've been told that Richard Dawkins is now in big trouble for saying something about Islam. Well, if he's in big trouble, then Dennis is really going to be in big troubles. Prager suggested that Islam is being spread both peacefully and violently. That's an understatement, by the way. Radical Islam is slaughtering Christians in Nigeria every single day, and not a word in our newspapers. Not one word. And the slaughter continues day after day after day. Not too long ago, they burned down 300 churches in one day. No one said boo. Secular humanism is being spread peacefully, and Christianity is not being spread at all. In fact, Christianity is the fastest growing religion in Asia and Africa. So I do not accept Prager's point here, but if he was referring to the West, he was right on target. Nevertheless, we cannot deny that Europe has abandoned Judeo-Christianity in favor of something resembling secular humanism. Or as Prager says in his July 2013 article, the world's most dynamic religion is leftism. Even Christianity and Judaism, says Prager, the pillars of Judeo-Christian values, the moral value system upon which America was founded, and thanks to which it became the world's beacon of liberty, have been widely influenced by leftism. Many priests, ministers, rabbis, and many Jewish and Christian seminaries are leftists in content, and Jewish or Christian only in form. He further states that the truth is that the left has been far more successful in converting Jews and Christians to leftism than Christianity and Judaism have been in influencing leftists to convert to Christianity or Judaism. Leftism has even attained considerable success at undoing the central American values of liberty, in God we trust, and e pluribus unum, supplanting liberty with egalitarianism, a God-based society with secularism, and e pluribus with multiculturalism. Paul Beelan, editor of the Brussels Journal and adjunct fellow of the Hudson Institute, outlines the fall of Western Europe to the forces of secularism and socialism in an article entitled Europe's Culture War, Secularism on the March. His analysis is so compelling for the Christian community that I quote freely from his article. Europe, says Beelan, is in the middle of a three-way culture war. That's interesting. It sounds like Dennis Prager, doesn't it? It's between the defenders of traditional Judeo-Christian morality, the proponents of secular hedonism, and the forces of Islamic jihadism. In Western Europe, the fight between Christians and secularists is all but over. The secularists have won. Now the religious vacuum left by the demise of Christianity is being filled by the Muslims. Since one cannot fight something with nothing, the European secularists are no match for Islam. I support Beelan's take with Melanie Phillips' book, London Stand, How Britain is Creating a Terror State Within. She refers to the Brits' capital as London Stand. In present-day London, Muslims are much safer walking the streets than evangelical Christians. Ask Tommy Robinson and Kevin Carroll. And recently, unbelievable, and recently the British Home Secretary Theresa May banned Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer from entering the country. Of course, they did that to Michael Savage a few years ago. Both were declared. Pamela Gillett, just a sweet little honey, okay, has been declared a threat to the peace and security of the country for telling the truth about Islamic jihadism. She'd be a great speaker here next year, probably. Before continuing with Beeland's article, allow me to repeat a similar observation that I have been making for a number of years. If Christianity succumbs to secular humanism, the Muslims would march into Vienna without a struggle, because secular humanists are not willing to die for their faith in atheism, naturalism, relativism, and Darwinian evolution. Men and women die for their flag, their country, their fellow warriors, and their God, as C.S. Lewis notes in The Abolition of Man, but not for a compilation of unbeliefs that run counter to their very nature. The vast majority of us, I would wager about 96%, still cannot bring ourselves to believe that the universe and life itself are the result of chance and accident, as secular humanists would have us believe. And Michael Denton insists that microbiology since the 1950s is making it crystal clear that the cell could never be the result of natural selection, or more accurately, chance on chance. He says every living cell is a veritable automated factory, depending on the functioning of up to 100,000 unique proteins, each of which can be considered to be a basic working component. Hence, Islam will ultimately triumph as secular humanism and the secularists continue to marginalize God, Christ, and Christianity, and especially Christian morality, which physicist Richard Feynman said was one of the very foundation stones of Western civilization. By the way, the other one was, for him, science. Meanwhile, says Beeland, the dark forces of secularism, such as the European Union, are waging war in Central and Eastern Europe, where they target countries such as Poland, Slovakia, and the Baltic states. On April 25, 2007, the European Parliament, the EU's legislature, adopted a resolution condemning homophobia. With 325 votes against the 124 and 150 abstentions, the EP warned Poland that it will face sanctions if it adopts a law barring the promotion of homosexuality in its schools. Churches too were reprimanded for fermenting hatred and violence against homosexuals. Poland's Prime Minister Kaczynski commented on the resolution. He said, "Nobody is limiting gay rights in Poland." However, if we're talking about not having homosexual propaganda in Polish schools, such propaganda should not be in the schools. By the way, in our schools, it's there from kindergarten on. Cardinal Angelo Scola of Venice retorted that there is no homophobia in the Catholic Church, and it's time that all of this recrimination of Christians in the European Parliament be ended. That is not likely to end. The fight against intolerance, that is adherence, what's considered intolerance is adherence to traditional Christian morality, and that's intensifying. On May the 3rd, 2007, the European Court of Human Rights found Polish President Lech Kaczynski guilty of violating human rights because he banned a gay pride parade in Warsaw in 2005. Last March, the same court ordered Poland to compensate a woman who was denied an abortion. Last year, Poland was denounced by the Council of Europe because it prohibited the distribution in schools of a leaflet about homosexuality. And so it goes. Secular humanists and their Marxist brothers are using sexual preference, sexual orientation, sexual liberation, same-sex marriage as powerful weapons, portraying Christian morality as an intolerant, bigoted, mean, and even an enemy of the human race. Per Scalia, by the way, in his decision. If you were against same-sex marriage, you were an enemy of the human race. And their success can be measured by such remarks as, quote, "I would not worship a God who is homophobic. And that is how deeply I feel about this." I would refuse to go to a homophobic heaven. No, I would say, sorry. I mean, I would much rather go to the other place. End of quote. Do I hear some Iowans out there? Oh, there are quite a few of them. Oh, yeah. I can see. Well, I won't say that either. These were the words. Anyone know who said that, by the way? Desmond Tutu. That's good for you. These were the words of South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu, speaking to the United Nations Gay Rights Commencement Program. So now we know where he's going. I move on. Allow me to emphasize this point. Is this too much for this afternoon? I should go back to Arizona. My wife is calling. I can see that. Allow me to emphasize this point by quoting from an article by William Lind in the Marine Corps Gazette. And let me tell you, when you get something from the Marine Corps Gazette, you've got something. In an observation on this same point by Malcolm Muggeridge in his great work, The End of Christendom, Bill Lynn writes, in the United States of America, our traditional Western Judeo-Christian culture is collapsing. See, I've spent most of this time in Europe, right, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I thought I'd better bring it home. Oh, isn't this sad? Our traditional Western Judeo-Christian culture is collapsing. It is not collapsing because it failed. On the contrary, it has given us the freest and most prosperous society in all of human history. Rather, it is collapsing because we are abandoning it. It's collapsing because we are abandoning it. Since the 1960s, we have thrown away our values, our morals, and our standards that define traditional Western culture. In part, this has been driven by cultural radicals, people who hate our Judeo-Christian culture. Dominant in the elite, by the way, it's always the elite, not the farmers of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And I bring those in because I'm from Wisconsin. But my wife is from Iowa. She was a farmer's daughter, trust me, and she's tough as tacks still. And that's why I gotta hurry and get home. Dominant in the elite, especially in the universities, the media, and the entertainment industry, the cultural radicals have successfully pushed an agenda of moral relativism, militant secularism, and sexual and social liberation. That's the Marine Corps Gazette. Now, Muggeridge's take. Previous civilizations have been overthrown from without by the incursion of barbarian hordes. Christendom has dreamed up its own dissolution in the minds of its own intellectual elite. Our barbarians are home products, indoctrinated at the public expense. And that's you Christians too, by the way. You're paying for your own destruction, but that's another lecture. And that's 2 hours long. Indoctrinated at the public expense, urged on by the media, of course they always urge on whatever is wrong for the country, systematically stage by stage, dismantling Christendom, deprecating and depreciating all its values. The whole social structure is now tumbling down. We're dethroning God. We're undermining all its certainties. And all of this, wonderfully enough, is being done in the name of health, wealth, and the happiness of all mankind. Can you handle a little bit more? This is tough. Unfortunately, however, some of this subversion has been prompted by the antics of the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church throughout Europe and the United States. Enrique Roida, in his powerful work, The Homosexual Network, puts it on the line when he says, as a matter of fact, Roman Catholic facilities are regularly used for holding homosexual events, fundraisers, conferences, organizational meetings, workshops, and others. The number of instances is so large it's impossible to edit them all. And everyone thought that Randy Engel, a Roman Catholic too, was off base when he wrote a 1,318-page book on the rite of sodomy in the Roman Catholic Church. Yet here is an article in the Wall Street Journal dated June 13, 2013, page A13, entitled, "The Pope Says the Gay Lobby is at Work in the Vatican." The article says in part that a year before resigning, Pope Benedict XVI ordered 3 cardinals to conduct an internal investigation, and I won't read the rest for time's sake because it's getting away from me on here, but you can read the rest, and if you need it, I'll send it to you. Protestants, unfortunately, are neither immune nor innocent in this matter, since many among their ranks are those denominations that allow and defend the ordination and employment of openly homosexual clergy. Some even permit their bishops to divorce their wives and marry their significant other. How many evangelicals are buying into the same-sex marathon is yet to be determined. But knowing how some evangelical colleges have their own gay and lesbian organizations is a scandal in itself. For example, Biola University has its own Biola Queer Underground group, which should cause some of us heartache. And Calvin College has been famous for its GLBTQIA undertakings over many years. And those who dare oppose it are called some very intolerant names. So secular humanism is slowly but surely subverting all of Europe, West, Central, and East, and now it's only a matter of time before Christians in America will begin to fully experience the repercussions. As in Europe, America's public schools embrace a secular humanist curriculum, and much like their counterparts in Europe, American humanists use sexuality as a weapon to portray Christian morality as intolerant. Anyone now doubt James Dobson's famous observation? The secular humanist system of values has now become the predominant way of thinking in most of the power centers of American society. It has outstripped Judeo-Christian precepts in the universities, in the news media, in the entertainment industry, in the judiciary, in the federal bureaucracy, in business, medicine, law, psych, social arts, public schools, and halls of Congress. By the way, I then intersect there with Dr. Dobson. I said the radical House of Representative organizations include the Progressive Democrats of America, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, and the Democratic Socialists of America. And by the way, the DSA was founded by Karl Marx himself. Indeed, the resources available, this is Dobson, indeed the resources available to secular humanists throughout society are almost unlimited in scope and are breaking new grounds almost every day. With the U.S. Supreme Court handing down 2 of its latest decisions ruling to the Defense of Marriage Act and same-sex marriage, we are now finding ourselves on Main Street, Sodom and Gomorrah. And it was the President of the United States who not only decrees June of each year as Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer Month, but in June 29, 2009, welcomed 300 gay activists to the White House in celebration of homosexuality, including Frank Kameny, who referred to the God of the Bible as a sinful, homophobic bigot. Nevertheless, such blasphemy did not stall the President of the United States from saying, and so, quote, and so we are proud of you, Frank, and we are grateful to you for your leadership. Incidentally, for the record, Kameny's full quote reads as follows: your God of Leviticus and the whole Bible is clearly a sinful, homophobic bigot. He should repent of his sinful homophobia. He should atone for that sin. He should seek forgiveness for the pain and suffering which his sinful homophobia has needlessly inflicted upon gay people for the past 4,000 years. In closing my jerry-mead, the powers that be want me to recommend a positive action or two in light of the above conclusions of collision worldviews that we are now engaged. This is easier than at first glance and quite simple. A, defend, protect, and deepen your marriage. B, protect your children above everything else. The Christian worldview, which includes creationism, redemption through Jesus Christ, and Christian morality, can be rationally, emotionally, and spiritually defended and must be passed along to our children and the next generation. If we fail here, we fail in everything that is of primary importance in life. And I would be amiss if I didn't encourage everyone here with teenagers to consider a 2-week course of study at Summit Ministries in Manitou Springs, Colorado, or Dayton, Tennessee. I leave you with a bit of wisdom from that 21st century philosopher, Larry the Cable Guy. Larry says, everyone concentrates on the problems we're having in our country lately: illegal immigration, hurricane recovery, alligators attacking people in Florida. Not me. I concentrate on solutions for the problems. It's a win-win situation. A, dig a moat the length of the Mexican border. B, send the dirt to New Orleans to raise the level of the levees. That's not the punchline yet. C, put the Florida alligators in the moat along the Mexican border.